Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know this is the video y'all all been waiting for since this all started popping off in our nation this past couple weeks. I know that parents, especially the parents in my audience, have been desperate to know how to start these important conversations about race. And while I get where it's coming from, I get why there's that scramble to help our children understand what's going on and to give them context. I have been a strong proponent of we first starting with putting on our own oxygen mask as parents, first educating ourselves, first looking in the mirror, taking responsibility for our privilege, owning up to our own bias, working through those, unlearning and relearning what we need to know, because we cannot start this conversation about race until we have first started it with ourselves, right? So go ahead and check out this video if you haven't already, because that's where we start. That's how we lay this foundation. Okay. Now let's talk about how do we start these important conversations about race with our children, because these actually need to start really early, I think much earlier than we think. And what's surprising is that over half of white parents are not talking about race with their children. So that speaks to what we need to work on, and it also speaks to a lot of you guys don't have the framework to work from, right? Because probably your parents didn't even start this conversation with you. So it's important that we own up to it and that we start talking about this like now. Okay. The other thing to remember is that we all have biases. Our brains are flooded with information, and so the way that we stay sane essentially is to categorize information. We all do that, and as humans we tend to gravitate towards people that look like us, who are similar to us, who are familiar to us. We all do this, and our children do this. So we have to start here by just knowing that, and knowing that our job as parents is to guide their narrative, right? They're looking to us for information on how to understand themselves as well as the world around them. So we need to guide them towards celebrating similarities and differences, right? We can't be colorblind anymore. We need to throw that in the trash, right? Racism exists and it is alive and well. And until we can acknowledge that and move forward with that, we are doing a huge disservice to teach our children just to be kumbaya and everybody is the same and one heart. No, racism is alive and well. So tip number one is to start early, okay? I can't overemphasize this enough. If we do not start this work early, we are inadvertently teaching our children that race is a taboo topic, right? And research shows us that infants as early as 6 months learn to notice racial differences, and between 2 and 4, children can develop racial bias if they're not guided in the right direction. So we must start these conversations early. We cannot depend on our children to ask us about it or make comments. We have to point it out. And the way that we do this, I like to think of it like, you know, we're teaching our children colors, right? We're teaching them what's red and what's green. Well, we can notice and celebrate different skin tones, different facial features, different hair textures. We can notice and celebrate those. A lot of this can start with the content that they're exposed to in books, as well as TV shows and apps. There's a lot of great resources out there. I will include my link to my bookshop, which has a bunch of children's books to get you started on this. But you can start to notice and point it out to your children. Wow, her brown skin is so beautiful. Wow, look at her beautiful curly hair. Those kinds of things, right? You want to notice it and celebrate it before your children even point it out to you, okay? Because you want to be sending that message. Everybody is beautiful. These differences are beautiful and to be celebrated. There's nothing wrong with pointing this out. And when they point it out, right, if they say, oh yes, you know, his skin is brown, you want to say, yes, his skin is brown, right? Because if we come at this with anxiety, right, with hesitance, our children are going to pick up on this. And again, we're going to be sending them this message: we shouldn't be talking about race. It's bad to talk about our differences. And that's not the message that we want to send. So from early on, okay, under 5 years old, you want to be noticing these things and noticing them often and in ways that we're celebrating the differences. Okay, tip number 2 is to look for subtle cues of curiosity. You want to start this conversation, but keep the conversation open, right? Keep the doors open and be mindful of their subtle cues that they're looking for more guidance or more conversation around the topic of race. So for toddlers, often what happens is that they use nonverbal cues like pointing or wanting to touch hair or skin to show you that they're curious. And again, try not to shut this down. Use that as opportunities to once again point out the differences and celebrate them, right? And if at any point your young child makes comments or remarks or asks questions that are troublesome to you, you first want to start by staying curious, okay? Try not to impose your own fears, your own biases onto them when you listen to their question or their remarks. So first you want to make sure you understand where they're coming from. So if they say something like, "Oh yes, okay, pass me that skin colored crayon," you want to say, "Oh, what did you mean by that? What did you mean by skin colored crayon?" Get curious, right? "Oh, where did you hear that? I'm curious about that." Because if in our tone we are shaming them or trying to shut them down, they're going to be less likely to come to us in the future, right? They're going to be more likely to just stay silent and view this as a taboo topic. So welcome them, stay curious about what they're hearing, what they're learning, what they're thinking. And then once you understand and you're clear on what their question is or their comment is about, then you want to use that opportunity to create teaching moments, right? Our children will always tell us what they need more guidance on, right? They will always tell us that. So when we see those comments, when we hear them, instead of trying to shut it down, make that your cue of, okay, they need some more learning and guidance here. This is where I need to focus my energy right now. And so you might either need to challenge their views of overgeneralization of a racial group or Black people in general, or you might need to teach them more about empathy and celebrating differences. Whatever it is, use it as a teaching moment. Tip number 3 is really quick, really easy, and really straightforward, and that is to take a stand. Take a stand as a family against racism, right? You want to teach your child, yes, racism is alive and well, that none of these events are isolated events. This stands within the historical context of our country, again, being that over 80% of our country has been in slavery and Jim Crow, and I mean, it's not much different. It looks different, but it's not much different. If we want to talk about the mass incarceration of our Black men as well as other issues in our society. So you want as a family to stand up against racism, and that's by clearly pointing it out. Racism is not acceptable. Yes, it is still a problem. You don't want to deny that, and it's not acceptable. And tip number 4, which I think is really important, is that we want to make sure our conversations are balanced. When we talk about something so heavy as racism, white supremacy, and all of the above, we want to also make sure that we are teaching our children that they are powerful, that their voices matter, that they can be allies to their Black friends, they can be agents of change. So you want to instill in them, and going back to tip number 3, the value that racism is not okay, and it is something that we are working on and being advocates for. We are agents of change, okay? So when they're at school, or if they ever see anything or see their Black friends being discriminated against, you want to teach them that their voice matters. So that might mean, coming to us if they need help, going to their teacher if they feel comfortable, if it's safe enough, actually speaking out in those instances against that person. But you want to empower your child to be a leader and to be an ally. So in the comments below, leave your additional questions, insights, and remarks. Let's keep this conversation going. This will be a series on my channel. I will not stop talking about this anytime soon. So be sure to leave any additional questions that you have that I can continue to address on my channel. Be sure to watch my previous video all about how we can do the work, how we can confront our white shame, our white guilt, and our privilege, and continue to do this work. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.